Of the two things that writers need to know, the first is what you want to write, and then the second is you'll need to know how to write it. So what are the most important factors for knowing how to write it?
Well, the ones that you don't know.
Okay.
Because the ones that you do know, you don't even know you know, and they naturally work out. I'm not a believer in knowing theme and plot and, this and that, because that's all head stuff, and then you can't really write it anyway from that. But whatever it is that you don't know, then that's the thing to find out about. And a lot of times people feel like, well, they don't know how to write it, therefore they better not start. They better not go to step one. But the truth is about step two is that you have to do step one. And then step two shows up. Really simple. But if you think, well, but I don't know how, and I don't know, where to go from step one, then you're stopped. So you have to be willing to take step one, and step one will always take you to two, and so forth.
So then are we fine-tuning it in the revision stages? If I've never written a screenplay before, but I know what I want to write, and I'm just going to write it, then eventually, though, someone might look at it and say, okay, but this is sort of a jumbled mess, even though I understand it. At what point do we put some type of structure to it, or we don't? Do we hone in on it at some point? I know it doesn't have to be where this is going to happen by page whatever, because that feels maybe too formulaic. But at some point,
no, it's not formulaic. It's original form. You always have to have structure.
Okay, so maybe that's what I'm remiss in saying.
And the structure is the character. In other words, it's not a scaffolding that's outside of the person. It's that, what drives the person. And you know that with your friends and are getting acquainted with somebody. You're just fascinated by, that's an interesting way that person makes up their life. Now, why do you suppose? So their structure is their character. It's completely original to their idea of how they go about having a life. So that's what structure is. And the best and highest way is, for instance, if you close your eyes, and I use alpha, which is really good. It's like you close your eyes and you roll your eyes up into your eyelids, and you're in alpha. And then in alpha, it's like what you are in a shower, or if you're driving for a long way, although don't drive with your eyes shut.
Yeah.
But it's that rote kind of zone to be in. And when you're in that, then all of the images will start coming to you. And you can write them down on 3x5 cards. And the use of 3x5 cards, of course, is because you can't write much on them, which is good because then it keeps it simple. And then that's a beat. That's one scene. And here's another 3x5 card, and that's another scene that you're seeing and you're feeling, but those are coming in. And then what you're doing from that is you're progressing your character from where they are to where they're going to get to. And then that becomes your structure along the way.
I love it. So we're alpha is not quite asleep, like the gentleman you mentioned earlier in the lounge chair. This is where we're sort of between sleep.
Well, you're in a state of not coming down on yourself. Like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I can't do this. What am I gonna? I better get a real job. In alpha, you don't think of those things because you're in a mellow zone, and then these things come up. I believe in the random draft, and what I mean by the random draft is once you close your eyes and you envision your story, and you picture your hero, walking through the story, then you open your eyes and you write as fast as you possibly can in a random draft. In other words, just dump it all down, whatever it is that you've got. Surprise yourself, and you'll be amazed at how much more you have than you thought you had. Like, for instance, when I would do classes, I would ask the kids and the adults also would be, look at, pick out something. Or no, here's a bottle of water. And then let's write for this for 3 minutes. So they would write for 3 minutes on the bottle of water. But the truth is, it was always about themselves. It was never about the bottle of water. And so then when you begin to start seeing that, then not only do you begin to see what character is, you also see what structure is. Because now the bottle is rigid and with the top is on there tightly. That's a person's character. That's maybe how they are fearful about writing their script, what the overriding emotion is at the time. So you get a lot of information when you think you're looking at something else.
Is that sometimes when we go to a museum and we look at art, whether we're critical of it or we're embracing of it, is we're really seeing ourselves?
Exactly. It's really interesting you should say that. I was thinking this morning, I went to a retrospective of David Hockney, and I was so wonderful. I happened to find the spot in all the galleries. You could stand in the one spot and you could see up and down every one of the galleries from this spot. So here was his his perspective is all the many portraits. Every one of them was of him. I mean, not even it was his dog or waves in the water. They all looked exactly like him. It was amazing to see that. So I asked the curator to take, that they should take the photograph of that standing right there, because the whole thing was really quite amazing.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I watched something on Alice Neal and all these different interviews that she gave, and most of them were just of people in her neighborhood. She was so fascinated by New York City at the time, and she was criticized a lot, and she was just totally okay with herself, and it showed in her art too. And I think that was just so refreshing to see someone that was unapologetic. She wasn't rude about it. She was just okay with who she was. And you talked about that earlier, just, how do we know what to write, and whether we're a team player or not, and just being okay, this is me, so there's nothing wrong with that.
A lot of criticism comes at people because the person who's criticizing hasn't done it. And so because they haven't done it, they are very angry at the person who has done it, who's made art, when they haven't. And if they haven't, then they would much more readily want to criticize somebody else than really understand they're criticizing themselves. Very angry at themselves for not making their own art. If you're at the computer and you're tense, you can't type with your hands that way. If they're in a fist, you're not going to get much typing done. Step away. Always learn to let it go, let it go, let it go. It's interesting, the concept of letting go, because we might have an image in our idea, the career in Hollywood or whatever the thing that you're thinking, and you have a whole scenario going on, but it's not real, it's not true. And just because you have it in place, that's causing it to not be able to be in place, to anything else be in place. Because you're rigid on, it's got to be this way. And humans are really interesting in this way. They have desires, and they know what they want, and they think they know how to get it. But they don't know how to get it because they would have it. And so the how to get it is the thing that has to be let go of. Because always it's there arranging itself. But if you're in the way, you mess with the good arrangements. You're supposed to meet that funny character guy that's in the alley, at 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever, because he's a stand-up comic and he's got an idea for, what you're going to do in the movie and blah, 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 blah. But you don't know that. That looks like, that's wrong, that's bad, that's not going to work. So you mess with the mechanism of how you're going to get the thing that you so wish to get.
Is that similar to what, and I'm going to say his name wrong, forgive me, Makai, Krishnamurti, and I'm probably saying it incorrectly, flow? Is that
Probably.
okay, similar to that? Maybe it's more of a flow of a state that we go into. Because I see a theme and I love it, and it's about not forcing things
No,
with
don't
you,
force.
and I love that. It's very refreshing.
Yeah, don't ever force. Although, I will say, be fierce. Be fierce. But don't force.
How does that work?
Fierce is be in a state of faith, of knowing that it's going to do what it's going to do, knowing your part in it. Like, okay, you got to do this part. We'll do this part. You know, all the the gods and the waves of energy that are going through the galaxies. You know, they're all fine. They're all doing their job. You got to do yours, whatever that is. So you have to pay attention and know what that is. And it's a little thing, but you got to keep up. You got to keep at it to do your part. You have to be fierce.
Fierce, but then flowing.
Fierce and flowing.
I like that.
Because it takes being brave. I love your film courage. Love that. Love that. That's beautiful. It takes film courage to do all of this. And that's why you've been so successful at this. It's wonderful. You've created so much content that has so much value for people, and also the opportunity for them to to postpone working because there's so much rich material that they can look at. But and so many people with their hearts in the right place, where they're really smart and really able to give a lot of good information, and then people can, look at all that, really and so it enriches people. That's a beautiful thing. And so didn't that take fierceness on your part to continue to go on and do it and do it and do it and do it and have faith and keep going and to be clear about what it is that you want to do and do it?
Right, and a curiosity.
Curiosity, absolutely. All the things, it's a full-time job to be in your conscious state of creating.
I like it. Wow, that's good.
And then a nap.
Well, but then in a nap, though, you might go into alpha.
Right, or like the man at the pool. He was hovering up there someplace.
But what state is that in? That's REM sleep?
That's drone.
Okay.